April Connors had always been careful with her money. As a 32-year-old single mom living just outside of Lexington, Kentucky, every dollar mattered. She had recently moved into a small rental home with her 8-year-old daughter, Maya, after finally saving enough to leave an emotionally draining relationship. Life was starting to feel manageable. One warm Saturday in early spring, April was scrolling through Facebook Marketplace while sipping lukewarm coffee. She was hunting for a second-hand deep freezer to store extra meals. Between work and caring for Maya, meal prepping had become a necessity. She found a listing. Used freezer, $75, works perfectly, must pick up. The ad had one photo, a slightly dented white chest freezer sitting in what looked like a garage. The seller's name was Walt G., and the location was only 30 minutes away. The price was low, almost too low, but April messaged him anyway. Walt responded quickly. His tone was polite but distant. First come, first served. I'll be home until 3. Bring cash. April arrived just after noon, Maya in the back seat playing with her tablet. The address led to a quiet rural road lined with pine trees and rundown homes. Walt's house was small and cluttered. The front yard was filled with scrap metal, rusted tools, and a dented camper trailer. Walt, a tall, thin man with sunken eyes and yellow-stained fingers, led her around the back where the freezer sat. "It works fine," he said. "I just don't need it anymore." He didn't offer to help load it. April handed him the cash, thanked him, and with effort, managed to wrestle the heavy freezer into the back of her SUV with the help of a kind neighbor who happened to walk by. As she drove away, she noticed something. A faint, strange odor coming from the freezer. When April got home, the freezer sat in the garage for a few hours while she fixed lunch and played with Maya. But the smell lingered. It wasn't strong, just odd. Like something had spoiled. Later that evening, after Maya had gone to bed, April decided to clean it before plugging it in. She grabbed gloves, bleach, and opened the lid. That's when the first wave of nausea hit her. Inside, wrapped in black trash bags, was something. Several things. And the smell was now unmistakable. Her breath caught. She stepped back. Her brain tried to rationalize, maybe it was rotten meat someone forgot to take out? But something about the way the bags were tied, tight. Too tight. Hands shaking, April tugged one of the bags loose. Inside was a smaller plastic bag. Then another. Finally, a bundle wrapped in silver duct tape. When she peeled it open, she screamed. April called 911. Police arrived within minutes, and soon her entire cul-de-sac was swarming with flashing lights. Maya, confused and scared, was rushed to stay the night with a neighbor. Inside the freezer, 6 bags were recovered. Each one contained partial remains. Not in one piece, but cut, wrapped, and sealed. Detectives noted the contents had been kept frozen long enough to preserve most of the tissue. A forensic team was called in immediately. The next 72 hours were chaos. April was interviewed multiple times but cleared of any suspicion. Walt G., whose full name was Walter Green, was arrested within 2 days. It turned out Walter had a record, nothing major, just trespassing and a few minor drug charges. But when police searched his property, they found disturbing items, photos of unidentified women. Polaroids taken in the same garage where April had picked up the freezer. And a handwritten journal filled with fragmented entries about keeping them safe and cold silence. The remains were eventually identified through dental records and tattoos. 3 were women in their 20s who had been reported missing in Kentucky and Tennessee over the last 7 years. Their families had long given up hope. The story went viral. Facebook Marketplace freezer leads to serial killer arrest. Mom buys freezer, finds human remains inside. News crews camped outside April's home for weeks. She had to keep Maya out of school for her safety. They moved shortly after. April never gave another public statement except for one Facebook post. "I can't sleep. I keep thinking, what if I had plugged it in without checking? What if I hadn't opened it? How long would they have stayed hidden?" Walter Green is currently awaiting trial, charged with multiple counts of first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. He has not confessed. His defense claims he didn't remember putting anything in the freezer. Some believe Walter didn't act alone. Others wonder how many more victims might be out there. The police confirmed that some of the remains didn't match the identified victims. At least one set of bones belonged to someone who still hasn't been named. April never returned to Facebook Marketplace. She threw out every appliance she didn't personally buy. And to this day, when asked about the experience, she says one thing over and over. Last week, April thought she was buying a cheap freezer from Facebook Marketplace. What she found inside made headlines, and sparked nightmares. But what if I told you, that freezer was just the beginning? The seller Walter Briggs, 6'2", was immediately arrested after April discovered black bags filled with human remains inside the freezer. But during the investigation, detectives discovered something even more chilling on his phone. His Facebook Marketplace profile had been active for months, with several other items recently sold. And now, police needed to track down every buyer fast. The first buyer was a young college student in Pittsburgh. She'd purchased a vintage steamer trunk from Briggs for $45. At first, it seemed harmless, a little dusty, a few scratches. But when she decided to clean it out, she found a sealed envelope taped under the lining. Inside were 3 Polaroids. One showed a person gagged and tied to a chair in what looked like a basement. Another was a close-up of a woman's terrified eyes. The third? A blurry photo of a man's hand holding a knife. The second buyer, a single dad from Lancaster, had picked up a baby crib that Walter listed for free. It looked aged but functional. He decided to refurbish it. But while pulling out the mattress padding, he noticed it felt strangely heavy. Inside was a child's onesie, stained, with a small rip near the collar. Beneath that, a Ziploc bag containing what looked like a hospital bracelet, still intact. The name tag had faded, but you could still make out. Patient, Baby T. Briggs. The third and final known item? A sewing machine in a wooden box, sold to a vintage collector outside of town. When he opened it, he noticed the inside of the wooden box had been scratched, deep grooves, almost like claw marks. But what he found wrapped beneath the base of the machine was a piece of stitched fabric. The material wasn't normal. It was coarse, discolored, and warm. DNA testing would later confirm what authorities feared: it was human skin. Sewn into it was a note. "You shouldn't have opened it." April was brought back in by detectives. The evidence from the other buyers made one thing clear: Walter Briggs wasn't just hiding something in a freezer. He had been distributing trophies. Relics of his crimes. Spread out. Sold. Hidden in plain sight. The questions piled up. Were there more buyers? Were his victims ever reported missing? And the most terrifying of all: was Walter Briggs working alone? The freezer was just the start. He sold his secrets, one item at a time. And the people who bought them will never forget what they found. Because now they're part of his story. Thanks for watching. For more chilling true crime stories that dig deeper, simply subscribe. You never know what's buried behind the next click.